Let's move on now to our first and 10. All the big news around the SEC today, including item number 1 on the list. And, we've talked this week about Nick Saban's desire to stop getting so many compliments for his team. So much positive praise. He doesn't like that. He thinks that has the chance to be negative. In fact, if you missed it already this week, here is the very poignant description that Nick Saban gave to the kinds of compliments that his team's been getting. Take a listen.
I'm trying to get our players to listen to me instead of listening to you guys. All that stuff you write about how good we are and all that stuff they hear on ESPN, it's like poison. You know what I mean? It's like taking poison, like rat poison. All right, so I'm asking them, are you going to listen to me or are you going to listen to these guys about how good you are?
So that's the question that Nick Saban asked. Are you going to listen to me? Are you going to listen to them? These compliments are like rat poison. Well, in the case of the media maybe not giving Saban what he wants, I thought that Christopher Walsh had a really interesting piece at SECCountry.com who suggested, as it just so happens, Saban's birthday, Halloween, October the 31st, the same day as the College Football Playoff releases its first ranking for this year. And what Walsh writes at SEC Country is, on October 31st, on Saban's 66th birthday, that first ranking does come out. Alabama may be number 1 in the current polls, but the committee could easily reward reigning champion Clemson with the number 1 spot there. Alabama should hope it does. I think that's a really interesting piece at SECCountry.com. I'd invite folks to check it out, and I guess I would ask you, do you think that Walsh has a good point here? That for a Alabama team, Nick Saban in particular, that thinks these compliments can be rat poison, Alabama not being ranked number 1 in a couple of weeks, does that actually help the Crimson Tide?
Well, when I first read it, I kind of laughed at it. As a former player, you kind of scoff at these things because a lot of times, obviously, rankings don't matter, especially this day and age with the College Football Playoff. But when I start weighing all those options, I think it is a good thing. I think it is beneficial. The first thing I'd say is that, obviously, for this Alabama program, this mentality where you have to have something to fight for is kind of a backup plan for Nick Saban. He's going to game plan. He's going to develop these players. They're going to try to play at the highest level. But as a sort of backup plan, he does try to get these tactics throughout the week and make these guys act like it's them against the world. It's hard to do that as the number 1 team. So I think that's what Christopher Walsh is trying to step out and say. Maybe you're not getting enough respect. Maybe you do need to play better. Everybody's still asking questions about you. You're not the number 1 team in the country. I understand where this comes from, and I understand the rhetoric, and I understand that a lot of people in the media are going to try to crown Alabama before the end of the season gets here. So I do think there is a little bit of that in me that says, you know what? Go ahead and put Alabama at number 3, at number 4. Move them down the list, because at the end of the season, if they win all the games they're supposed to, they're going to be where they need to be.
Courtney Parrish in the comments section says that Nick Saban hates being number 1. At least early in the season, I think he probably does. Now, I know that Saban, like all coaches, dreams of being number 1 at the end of the year, but I think that Walsh actually brings up a pretty good point from that being number 1, living the burden of having that ranking before the season's done, is actually more negative than positive. Bobby J. Smith in the comment section also says that no one cares who's ranked number 1 this early in the season when these things come out in the first couple of weeks, but I don't necessarily think that's true. If Alabama's number 1, it won't care, but most teams being number 1 is kind of a big deal. Most fan bases would care about that, and I do think the opposite's also true here for Alabama. If it's not ranked number 1, you better believe that Saban would enjoy that. Saban would use that. Yeah. He's used so much already this season. The comment from the Vanderbilt defensive lineman, the perceived, hey, Ole Miss thinks they've got our number. He used that. He's trying to use the compliments and the media praise after the Texas A&M game. I would not put it past Saban to also try to use those playoff rankings in a couple of weeks if Alabama's not number 1.
Well, and I'm going to go an extra mile in this conversation. I'm going to say that it probably needs to be Clemson that is number 1, because I think that goes a long way to reminding these players what happened in the last season. It was Clemson who knocked you off in the national title game, didn't allow you to really get to your goals, especially if you're Jalen Hurts. It's going to remind you of the game you played against Clemson last year where you go 11 of 30 and don't do the things probably necessary to get your team to win the championships. And so I love the notion of moving Alabama down in the polls, helping Alabama out, but I think it adds an extra benefit to it if it is Clemson's their number 1 spot. That means that people still believe Clemson a little bit better team than Alabama at this point, and they have a lot of kind of hurdles to kind of take over.